Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Terran Aegis and watched the stars. The massive view screen showed the endless black of space, with tiny points of light scattered across it like diamonds on dark cloth. She had been staring at those same stars for 3 hours now, but she never got tired of the sight. Space was big, really big, and somewhere out there, they were not alone. The Terran Aegis was the newest and biggest warship that humanity had ever built. It was 15 kilometers long from front to back. That was longer than most cities. The ship was 3 kilometers wide and 2 kilometers tall. It looked like a giant metal mountain floating through space. Over 12,000 people lived and worked inside its thick metal walls. Sarah was proud to be the captain of such a ship. She was only 38 years old, but she had been in space for 20 years. She started as a young officer on small patrol ships. Now she commanded the most powerful weapon that Earth had ever created. The ship was so big that it had its own gravity. People could walk around inside, just like they were on a planet. The bridge was at the front of the ship. It was a huge room with dozens of workstations. Officers sat at their posts, watching screens and pushing buttons. The air hummed with the sound of computers and machines. Red and blue lights blinked on panels everywhere. It felt alive, like the heart of some giant metal beast. "Captain," said Lieutenant James Park. He was young, maybe 25, with short black hair and serious eyes. He worked at the sensor station. "Long-range sensors are picking up something strange." Sarah turned away from the view screen. "What kind of strange, Lieutenant?" "Unknown ships, ma'am. About 12 of them. They're moving in our direction, but they're still far away. Maybe 6 hours out at current speed." Sarah walked over to his station. The sensor display showed tiny dots moving across a star map. They were definitely ships, but they didn't look like anything in Earth's database. "Have you tried to identify them?" "Yes, ma'am. Computer says they don't match any known human designs. They're smaller than us, but they're moving fast, really fast." Sarah felt her heart beat a little faster. This could be it. The moment that Earth had been waiting for and preparing for since they first looked up at the stars. First contact with alien life. The Terran Aegis was out here on the edge of human space for exactly this reason. To be ready when it finally happened. "Sound general quarters," she said. "All hands to battle stations. This is not a drill." Alarms began to ring throughout the massive ship. Red lights flashed in every corridor. 12,000 people started moving to their assigned positions. The Terran Aegis had been built for war, and every person on board knew their job. "Ma'am," said Commander Lisa Rodriguez. She was Sarah's second in command, a tough woman with gray hair and scars on her hands from years of military service. "Should we power up the weapons?" Sarah thought about it. Earth's leaders had given her clear orders. Be peaceful if possible, but be ready for anything. Humans had learned hard lessons from their own history. When two different groups met for the first time, things could go wrong very quickly. "Bring the shields online," Sarah said. "Charge the main guns, but keep them powered down. I want us ready, but I don't want to look aggressive." "Yes, ma'am." The Terran Aegis had enough weapons to destroy a small moon. Its main guns were railguns that could shoot metal slugs at almost the speed of light. It had plasma cannons that could melt through any armor. It had missile tubes that could launch nuclear warheads, and that was just the obvious stuff. The ship also carried experimental weapons that most of the crew didn't even know about, but Sarah hoped they would not need any of it. Humanity wanted to make friends among the stars, not enemies. "Captain," said Lieutenant Park, "the unknown ships have changed course. They're definitely coming toward us now, and they're accelerating. Time to intercept." 4 hours, 37 minutes at their current rate. Sarah nodded. "Open a channel to Earth Command. Priority Alpha." The communications officer, a young woman with red hair, worked at her station for a moment. "Channel open, Captain. Earth Command. This is Captain Chen, aboard the Terran Aegis. We have visual contact with 12 unknown vessels of non-human origin. They are approaching our position and will intercept in approximately 4.5 hours. We are at general quarters and ready for any situation. Request orders." There was a long pause. Earth was very far away. Even traveling at the speed of light, radio signals took time to get there and back. Finally, a voice came through the speakers. It was Admiral Thompson, the head of Earth's space fleet. "Captain Chen, this is Admiral Thompson. You are authorized to make first contact if the situation allows. Remember your training. Be polite but firm. Do not show weakness, but do not start a fight. The whole human race is counting on you. Good luck." "Understood, sir." Chen out. Sarah looked around the bridge. Every officer was watching her. They all knew what this meant. They were about to make history. Either they would make the first peaceful contact between humans and aliens, or they would fight the first battle in an interstellar war. "All right, people," Sarah said. "We've trained for this. We're ready for this. Lieutenant Park, I want constant updates on those ships. Commander Rodriguez, make sure all departments are reporting ready status. And everyone else, remember your training and do your jobs. We're representing all of humanity out here." The next 4 hours passed slowly. The unknown ships kept getting closer. The sensors showed more details as they approached. The alien ships were sleek and smooth, not like the angular metal design of human ships. They looked almost like they had been grown instead of built. They were fast and graceful, moving through space like dolphins swimming through water. "Captain," said Lieutenant Park, "the alien ships have just entered our maximum weapons range. Any sign that they're powering weapons? Hard to tell, ma'am. Their technology is different from ours, but they don't seem to be charging up for an attack." Sarah stood up from her captain's chair. "Open a channel, all frequencies. Let's see if they want to talk." The communications officer worked her magic. "Channel open, Captain." Sarah took a deep breath. These might be the most important words ever spoken by a human being. "Unknown vessels. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Federation ship Terran Aegis. We are on a peaceful mission of exploration. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." For a long moment, there was only static. Then a voice came through the speakers. It was clearly alien, with strange musical tones and clicks, but somehow the ship's computer was translating it into English. "Human vessel, this is Commander Veltar of the Kirion Hegemony Patrol Fleet. You are approaching the borders of Council space without authorization. Reduce speed and prepare to be boarded for inspection." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. The alien's tone was cold and commanding. This was not the friendly greeting that humanity had hoped for. "Commander Veltar," Sarah replied, keeping her voice calm and professional. "We are in neutral space conducting lawful passage. We have no hostile intentions and request safe passage through this area. Negative, human ship. Council law requires all unknown vessels to submit to inspection. You will comply immediately or face the consequences." Sarah looked at Commander Rodriguez. The older woman's face was hard as stone. They both knew what this meant. The aliens were trying to push them around, to see if humans would back down. This was the test that Earth's leaders had warned them about. "Commander Veltar," Sarah said, her voice getting slightly harder, "we appreciate your position, but we must respectfully decline inspection. We are a sovereign vessel of the United Earth Federation, and we do not recognize the authority of your council in neutral space." There was a long pause. When the alien commander spoke again, his voice was angry. "Human ship, you will comply with our demands. We have 12 warships to your 1. Do not test our patience." Sarah almost smiled. 12 to 1. The aliens thought those were bad odds for the humans. They had no idea what they were dealing with. The Terran Aegis was not just one ship. It was a weapons platform that could take on an entire fleet. "Lieutenant Park," she said quietly, "what are the power readings on their ships?" "Much lower than ours, Captain. Each one of them is putting out about 1/10 the energy signature of our ship. Weapons. They have some kind of plasma-based system. Looks like they could do some damage to an unshielded ship, but nothing that our armor couldn't handle." Sarah nodded. The aliens were outgunned, and they didn't even know it, but she still hoped to avoid a fight. "Commander Veltar," she said over the radio, "we have no desire for conflict. Surely we can work something out diplomatically. The time for talk is over, human. You have 5 minutes to comply with our demands, or we will use force." Sarah sighed. Some things never changed. No matter what species you were dealing with, there was always someone who thought they could solve problems with threats and violence. "Commander Rodriguez," she said, "bring all weapons online, but do not target their ships yet. Let's see if we can still talk our way out of this." "Yes, ma'am." The Terran Aegis came fully alive. Its massive reactors hummed with power. Hundreds of weapon systems charged up and became ready to fire. The ship's shields strengthened to maximum power. In seconds, the human warship had gone from peaceful explorer to deadly predator. The alien ships must have detected the power surge because Commander Veltar's voice came back over the radio, and this time he sounded worried. "Human ship, what are you doing? Our sensors are detecting massive energy buildups." "Just powering up our defensive systems, Commander," Sarah replied calmly. "We still hope to resolve this peacefully. Your ship is much larger than we first realized," Veltar said. "How many weapons are you carrying?" Sarah smiled grimly. "Enough, Commander. More than enough." The 5 minutes passed like hours. Finally, Veltar's voice came back over the radio. "Human ship, you have exceeded the time limit. We are moving to attack positions. This is your final warning." Sarah watched the tactical display as the 12 alien ships spread out in an attack formation around the Terran Aegis. They moved with military precision, like they had done this many times before.
But they had never faced anything like humanity's newest warship. "Captain," said Commander Rodriguez. "Orders." Sarah stood up from her chair and straightened her uniform. History was about to be made, one way or another. "We gave them every chance to be reasonable," she said. "If they want to see what human technology can do, then we'll show them. But we're not going to start the shooting. Let them make the first move." The bridge was completely silent, except for the hum of machines and computers. 12,000 humans held their breath as they waited to see if the galaxy was ready for peace, or if humanity would have to fight for its place among the stars. Outside the view screen, the alien ships continued to move into position. Soon, one way or another, the waiting would be over. Commander Veltar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Swift Wind. His golden feathers were ruffled with anger and confusion. In all his 40 years of service to the Kyrian hegemony, he had never encountered anything like this massive human ship. The thing was enormous. It was bigger than some space stations he had seen. The Swift Wind was 800 meters long and considered one of the finest warships in the Council fleet. Veltar was proud of his ship and his crew. They had kept the peace in this sector for over 10 years. Pirates, smugglers, and rebels all feared the sight of Council patrol ships. But this human vessel made his entire fleet look like toys. "Commander," said his weapons officer, a young Kyrian named Cassera. Her voice had the musical quality that all of their bird-like species shared. "Their energy readings are off the scale. Our computers cannot even calculate their total power output." Veltar's sharp eyes studied the tactical display. The human ship sat in the center of the screen like a metal mountain. His 12 ships surrounded it, but he was starting to think that maybe they were the ones who were surrounded. "How is that possible?" he asked. "No single ship can generate that much power." "I don't know, sir," Cassera replied. "Maybe it's not just one ship. Maybe it's multiple ships connected together." Veltar had thought of that too, but their sensors showed only one hull, one massive structure moving through space. The humans had built something that defied everything the Council knew about practical starship design. "Sir," said his communications officer, "the human captain is requesting another dialogue. Put her through." The human's voice came through the speakers. It was calm and controlled, showing no fear at all. That worried Veltar more than anything else. Any reasonable captain facing 12-to-1 odds should be nervous. "Commander Veltar, this is Captain Chen. I want to make something clear. We do not wish to fight you. We came here in peace, and we want to leave in peace. But we will not submit to inspection by a foreign power in neutral space." "Captain Chen," Veltar replied, "you do not understand the situation. This sector has been under Council protection for over 500 years. We have the right and duty to inspect all unknown vessels. I understand your position, Commander, but surely you can see that we pose no threat to anyone. We are simply passing through on a peaceful mission." Veltar looked at the massive ship on his screen. "No threat? That thing could probably take on the entire Council fleet and win." But the human captain sounded sincere. Maybe they really were peaceful. "Captain Chen, if you are truly peaceful, then you should have no problem with a simple inspection. We just want to make sure you are not carrying illegal weapons or contraband." There was a pause before the human captain replied. "Commander, with respect, what you are asking is impossible. This is a military vessel of the United Earth Federation. We cannot allow foreign personnel aboard our ship. It would be like asking you to let us inspect your weapon systems." Veltar's feathers ruffled again. The human had a point, but he had his orders. Council law was clear. All unknown ships must be inspected. He had never failed to enforce Council law, and he was not about to start now. "Captain Chen, I have my orders. If you refuse inspection, I am authorized to use force." "Commander, I strongly advise against that course of action." Something in the human captain's voice made Veltar pause. It was not a threat exactly, but there was a warning there, like someone trying to prevent a friend from making a terrible mistake. "Are you threatening us, Captain?" "No, Commander. I am trying to prevent unnecessary bloodshed. You have 12 ships. I have one. But things are not always what they seem." Veltar studied his tactical display again. The human ship was not moving toward them or taking any aggressive action. It just sat there in space waiting. But their sensors showed that it was charging up weapon systems unlike anything in the Council database. "Sir," said his sensor officer, a Kyrian named Telvan, "I'm detecting massive magnetic field fluctuations from the human ship. It looks like they have some kind of railgun system, but the power levels are incredible." "How incredible?" "Each weapon appears to be capable of accelerating projectiles to at least 20% of light speed, sir. Maybe more." Veltar felt his blood go cold. 20% of light speed. That was impossible. The physics alone should make such a weapon too dangerous to mount on a starship. The recoil would tear the ship apart. Are you certain? Yes, sir. And that's just their kinetic weapons. They also have energy weapons that our computers cannot identify. The power requirements for their systems should require a reactor the size of a small moon. Veltar was beginning to understand why the human captain had sounded so confident. If those readings were accurate, then his entire fleet was in serious trouble. Sir, said his communications officer, we're receiving a transmission from the council station at Nexus Prime. They want an update on the situation. Tell them we have made contact with an unknown species calling themselves humans. They have refused inspection, and we are... Veltar did not want to report that he might have bitten off more than he could chew. The council expected their patrol commanders to handle situations like this efficiently. Admitting that he was outgunned by a single ship would not look good on his service record. Commander, came Captain Chen's voice again. I'm going to make you an offer. We will transmit our ship's registration, our mission parameters, and our destination. You can verify that we are not a threat to Council space. In return, you allow us to continue on our way without interference. That actually sounded reasonable. Veltar was about to agree when his political officer spoke up. Lieutenant Colonel Zephyrin was not Kyrian. He was Altarian, a species that looked like tall, thin humans with blue skin. The Altarians were known for being very strict about following rules. Commander Veltar, Zephyrin said in his cold, precise voice, Council law is clear. There are no exceptions for unknown vessels. We cannot allow them to pass without proper inspection. Veltar wanted to tell the political officer to shut up, but Zephyrin had the authority to report him to the Council if he failed to follow proper procedures. His career would be over. Captain Chen, Veltar said reluctantly, I appreciate your offer, but our laws do not allow for exceptions. You must submit to inspection or face the consequences. This time there was a longer pause before the human captain replied, Commander, I am going to ask you one more time. Please reconsider. You do not want to start a fight with us. Are you threatening us again, Captain? No, Commander. I am trying to save lives. Your lives. The way she said it made Veltar's feathers stand on end. The human captain was not boasting or trying to intimidate him. She sounded genuinely concerned, like someone trying to warn a child away from a dangerous animal. Sir, said Telvan, the human ship is definitely powering up weapons now. All of them. The energy readings are, Sir, I've never seen anything like this. How many weapons are we looking at? Hundreds, sir. Maybe thousands. It's hard to tell because they're built into the hull structure. The entire ship appears to be designed as a weapons platform. Veltar stared at the tactical display. The human ship had not moved or made any aggressive gestures, but his sensors were screaming warnings about energy buildups that should not be possible. Sir, said Kessera, if their weapons are as powerful as our sensors indicate, they could destroy our entire fleet in minutes. That's impossible, said Zephyrin. No single ship can carry that much firepower. Their sensors must be malfunctioning. The sensors are working fine, Telvan replied. I've run 3 complete diagnostics. The readings are accurate. Veltar was faced with an impossible choice. His orders were clear, but his common sense was screaming at him to back down. If the sensor readings were even half accurate, he was about to lead his crews into a massacre. Commander, came Captain Chen's voice one more time. You have 30 seconds to make a decision. After that, I cannot guarantee the safety of your ships. You have 12 ships to deal with, Captain, Veltar said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. Commander, I have been trying to be polite, but let me be very clear. The number of ships you have does not matter. What matters is that you are flying patrol vessels, and I am flying a dreadnought. Do you understand the difference? Veltar did understand. A dreadnought was a ship designed for one purpose, to destroy other ships. It was built to take on entire fleets and win. The Council had not built ships like that in centuries, because there had been no need. But apparently, the humans had different ideas about ship design. Sir, said his communications officer, incoming transmission from Fleet Command. Admiral Corthan wants to speak with you immediately. Admiral Corthan was Veltar's direct superior, a veteran carry-on with 50 years of experience. Maybe he would have some guidance for this impossible situation. Put the Admiral through. Commander Veltar, came the Admiral's stern voice. What is your current status? Sir, we have encountered a human vessel that refuses to submit to inspection. They claim to be on a peaceful mission, but their ship is heavily armed. How heavily armed? Veltar hesitated. Sir, our sensors indicate that they outgun our entire patrol fleet by a significant margin. There was a long pause. Commander, are you telling me that a single alien ship is more powerful than 12 Council vessels? Yes, sir. That appears to be the case. Another pause. Longer this time. Commander, you are ordered to avoid direct confrontation unless absolutely necessary. The Council is sending reinforcements, but they will not arrive for several hours. Do whatever you must to prevent a shooting war. Veltar felt relief wash over him. Finally, someone in authority was showing some common sense. Understood, sir. What about the inspection requirement? Forget the inspection, Commander. We're dealing with something completely outside our experience here. The priority is to avoid starting an interstellar war on our watch. Yes, sir. The transmission ended, and Veltar felt like a huge weight had been lifted from his shoulders. He was about to contact Captain Chen when Zephyrin spoke up again. Commander, you cannot ignore Council law. I will have to report this to the political committee. Then report it. Veltar snapped. But I will not get my crews killed because of bureaucratic stupidity. He opened a channel to the human ship. Captain Chen, this is Commander Veltar. We appear to have reached an impasse. Perhaps we could discuss this situation further. I'm listening, Commander. Would you be willing to meet halfway? Perhaps you could transmit some basic information about your ship and your mission, and we could escort you to the edge of our patrol zone. There was a pause. Then the human captain replied, That sounds reasonable, Commander. We are transmitting our ship registration and mission data now. Veltar watched as the information came through. The human ship was designated UEF Terran Aegis, registry number TAU-001. Its mission was listed as Deep Space Patrol and First Contact Protocols. The crew was listed as 12,000 personnel. 12,000. Veltar's entire fleet carried maybe 3,000 people total. This single ship had 4 times as many crew members as his whole patrol force. Captain Chen, he said, your crew complement seems unusually large for a single vessel. The Terran Aegis is what we call a Titan-class warship, Commander. It's designed for long-duration missions in deep space. We carry everything we need to operate independently for years if necessary. A Titan-class warship. That explained everything. The humans had built something that was part starship, part mobile base, and part fortress. No wonder it was so heavily armed. Very well, Captain. We will escort you to the edge of our patrol zone. Please maintain your current heading and speed. Thank you, Commander. This is exactly the kind of reasonable solution we were hoping for. As the strange convoy moved through space, Veltar could not shake the feeling that everything had just changed. The humans had arrived with technology that made the Council's best ships look primitive. They had been polite and professional, but they had also made it very clear that they would not be pushed around. The age of Council dominance in this part of the galaxy might be coming to an end, and Veltar was not sure if that was a good thing or a very bad thing.
The convoy moved through space for 2 hours without incident. Commander Veltar began to think that maybe the situation would end peacefully after all. The massive human ship stayed on course, following the route that would take them out of Council patrol space. His 12 vessels flew alongside like tiny escorts next to a metal mountain, but Lieutenant Colonel Zephyrin would not let it go. The Altarian political officer had been pacing the bridge for the past hour, his blue skin darker than usual with anger. Finally, he stopped in front of Veltar's command chair. "Commander, this is unacceptable," Zephyrin said in his cold voice. "We cannot simply let them pass without proper inspection. It sets a dangerous precedent." "Colonel, the situation is under control," Veltar replied. "We have their identification and mission data. They are clearly not pirates or smugglers. That is not the point. Council law exists for a reason. If we allow one ship to ignore our authority, others will follow. Soon, no one will respect Council space." Veltar kept his voice calm, but his feathers were starting to ruffle with irritation. "Colonel, did you not hear the Admiral's orders? We are to avoid confrontation. The Admiral is not here. You are the ranking officer in this sector, and you have the authority to enforce Council law." Veltar looked at his crew. They were all listening to the argument, and he could see the uncertainty in their eyes. Some of them probably agreed with Zephyrin. They had been trained to be proud of Council authority, to never back down from anyone. "Sir," said Telvin from the sensor station, "I'm detecting something strange. There's a large asteroid about 10,000 kilometers off our starboard side. The human ship seems to be scanning it." Veltar looked at the tactical display. The asteroid was nothing special, just a chunk of rock about 2 kilometers across. "Any idea why they would be interested in it?" "No, sir. It's just ordinary rock and metal." Zephyrin seized on this new development. "You see, they are already acting suspiciously. We should demand an explanation." "Colonel, scanning asteroids is hardly suspicious behavior. Many ships do geological surveys." But Zephyrin was not listening. He walked over to the communication station and spoke to the officer there. "Open a channel to the human ship." Veltar started to object, but Zephyrin was already speaking. "Human vessel, this is Lieutenant Colonel Zephyrin of the Council Political Corps. Explain why you are scanning that asteroid." There was a pause before Captain Chen's voice came through the speakers. She sounded slightly annoyed. "Colonel, we are conducting routine navigational scans. It's standard procedure to map any large objects in our flight path. That explanation is insufficient," Zephyrin replied. "I am ordering you to stop all scanning activities immediately." Veltar felt his heart sink. The political officer was deliberately provoking the humans, and there was nothing he could do to stop it without causing a major incident. "Colonel," came Captain Chen's voice, and now she definitely sounded annoyed. "You do not have the authority to give us orders. We have already agreed to escort arrangements with Commander Veltar. I am a duly authorized representative of the Council Political Corps. I have the authority to override any field commander when Council security is at stake." Veltar wanted to strangle the blue-skinned fool. Zephyrin was technically correct about his authority, but he was using it in the worst possible way. "Colonel," Captain Chen said, and her voice was getting colder, "we are conducting lawful activities in neutral space. We will not be dictated to by you or anyone else." "Then you leave me no choice," Zephyrin said. "Commander Veltar, I am ordering you to fire a warning shot across their bow. Show them that we mean business." "Colonel, I strongly advise against that," Veltar said quickly. "Are you refusing a direct order, Commander?" Veltar was trapped. If he refused, Zephyrin would have him arrested for insubordination. If he obeyed, he might start an interstellar war. But maybe, just maybe, a warning shot would be enough to end this standoff without real violence. "Kisara," he said quietly, "prepare to fire a warning shot." Low-power plasma burst well clear of their ship. His weapons officer looked uncertain. "Sir, are you sure about this?" "Just do it, Lieutenant." Kisara's hands moved over her controls. "Warning shot ready, sir." Veltar took a deep breath. "Fire." A bright blue bolt of plasma shot from the Swiftwind's main gun. It passed several kilometers in front of the human ship's nose and dissipated harmlessly in space. It was the standard Council warning shot, designed to show force without causing damage. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Captain Chen's voice came over the radio, and it was like listening to ice. "Commander Veltar, that was inadvisable. Stand down immediately." Zephyrin smiled with satisfaction. "You see, they are backing down already. All it takes is a show of strength." But Veltar was watching his sensor displays, and what he saw made his blood freeze. The human ship was not backing down. It was powering up every weapon it had. "Telvan, what are you reading?" "Sir, their energy output just increased by 300%. Every weapon system on that ship is now fully charged and ready to fire, but they haven't targeted us." "No, sir. They're just ready." Captain Chen's voice came through the speakers again. "Commander, I am going to give you a demonstration of why that was a very bad idea. I want you to watch your sensors very carefully." On the tactical display, Veltar saw one of the human ship's gun turrets rotate toward the asteroid that they had been scanning. The turret was huge, bigger than most of the weapons on his entire ship, but it was just one of hundreds visible on the human vessel's hull. "What are they doing?" asked Zephyrin. "I think," Veltar said slowly, "they are about to show us what human weapons can really do." The human ship fired. What happened next would be talked about in Council space for centuries. The railgun round left the Terran Aegis at 25% of light speed. It was just a chunk of metal, no bigger than a person, but it was moving so fast that it became something else entirely. When it hit the asteroid, the rock did not just break apart or explode, it simply ceased to exist. The kinetic energy was so enormous that the asteroid was instantly converted into plasma. In the space of a heartbeat, 2 kilometers of solid rock became an expanding cloud of superheated gas. Every alarm on every Council ship started screaming at once. The energy release from the impact was like watching a small star being born and die in the same second. The plasma cloud expanded outward, glowing white-hot and beautiful and terrifying. The bridge of the swift wind was completely silent, except for the wailing of alarms. Every officer sat frozen at their stations, staring at the sensor readings that should have been impossible. "Telvan," Veltar said in a voice that did not sound like his own, "what was the energy yield of that impact?" Telvan's hands shook as he worked his controls. "Sir, the computer estimates approximately 50 megatons equivalent from a single projectile, with no explosive warhead. 50 megatons. That was enough energy to level a major city, and the human ship had hundreds of those weapons." "Sir," said Kisara, "they didn't even use their biggest guns. That shot came from one of their secondary turrets." Veltar felt like he was going to be sick. His entire patrol fleet could not generate that much firepower if they fired every weapon at once. And the humans had done it casually, with what appeared to be one of their smaller weapons. Captain Chen's voice came through the speakers again, calm and professional. "Commander Veltar, that was a standard kinetic round from one of our point defense systems. Our main guns are considerably more powerful. I trust this demonstration clarifies the situation for you." Point defense. That devastating attack had come from a point defense weapon. Veltar's mind reeled. Point defense systems were supposed to shoot down missiles and small fighters, not vaporize asteroids. "You see now," Captain Chen continued, "why I was trying to avoid this confrontation. We do not wish to fight you, but we are fully prepared to defend ourselves if necessary." Zephyrin finally found his voice.
This is impossible. No ship can carry that much firepower. It must be some kind of trick. Colonel, Veltar said quietly, I suggest you stop talking before you get us all killed. But the political officer was not listening. He was staring at the expanding plasma cloud where the asteroid used to be, and his blue face had turned almost white. Sir, said Telvin, I'm receiving emergency transmissions from the other ships in our fleet. They all recorded the same readings. This was not a trick or an illusion. What about their other weapons? Veltar asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know the answer. Sir, based on the energy signatures we detected during their power-up sequence, they have weapon systems that could crack a planet's crust, and that's not even counting whatever experimental systems they might be carrying. Veltar closed his eyes. He had led his crews into a situation where they were completely outmatched. If the humans decided to attack, his entire fleet would be destroyed in seconds. They would not even have time to send a distress signal. Commander, came Captain Chen's voice, I want to make something very clear. We fired that shot into empty space to make a point, not to threaten you. We are still willing to resolve this peacefully, but there will be no more warning shots. The next time someone fires on us, we will respond with appropriate force. Appropriate force. Veltar shuddered to think what the humans considered appropriate force when dealing with threats. Captain Chen, he said, I apologize for the warning shot. It was a mistake. We have no desire to fight you. I understand, Commander. Mistakes happen, but I want you to understand something. The ship you are looking at is not unusual by human standards. We have hundreds of vessels like this one. Some of them are even larger. Hundreds. The humans had built an entire fleet of ships like this monster, each one capable of destroying entire solar systems. What kind of species builds weapons like that, unless they expect to fight wars on an unimaginable scale? Sir, said his communications officer, we're receiving another transmission from Fleet Command. Admiral Corthan wants an immediate status report. Veltar did not want to explain to his superior that he had just witnessed a demonstration of firepower that made the entire Council fleet look like children's toys, but he had no choice. Put the Admiral through. Commander Veltar, what is your situation? Our long-range sensors detected a massive energy discharge in your area. Sir, Veltar said carefully, the human vessel demonstrated one of their weapon systems. They destroyed a 2-kilometer asteroid with a single shot. There was a very long pause. Commander, did you say they destroyed an asteroid with one shot? Yes, sir. Completely vaporized it. The energy yield was approximately 50 megatons. Another pause, even longer this time. Commander, I am ordering you to avoid any further confrontation with that vessel. Do not engage them under any circumstances. Is that understood? Yes, sir. Perfectly understood. Good. The Council is sending our entire sector fleet to your position, but they will not arrive for 6 hours. Until then, you are to maintain a respectful distance and do nothing to provoke them. The transmission ended, and Veltar looked around his bridge. His crew was staring at him with a mixture of fear and awe. They had all just witnessed something that would change everything they thought they knew about warfare in space. Sir, said Kassara quietly, what do we do now? Veltar looked at the tactical display. The human ship continued on its course, seemingly unconcerned about the 12 Council vessels around it. The expanding plasma cloud marked the spot where solid rock had been turned into nothing in an instant. Now, he said, we escort them to the edge of our patrol zone, just as we agreed, and we pray to whatever gods are listening that they really are as peaceful as they claim to be. Because if the humans ever decided to go to war, Veltar realized with crystal clarity, there was nothing in the galaxy that could stop them. The emergency session of the Galactic Council began 3 hours after Commander Veltar transmitted his report. Representatives from 47 different species gathered in the Great Chamber on Nexus Prime, the neutral world where the Council had met for over 1,000 years. The chamber was a massive dome made of crystal and metal, designed to accommodate the different needs of dozens of alien species. Some delegates sat in chairs, others floated in tanks of water, and a few hung from the ceiling like bats. Despite their differences, they all shared one thing today: fear. Elder Keth Morin of the Zephyrian Collective was the first to speak. The ancient crystalline being had served on the Council for over 300 years. His voice rang through the chamber like wind chimes in a storm. Fellow delegates, he said, we face a crisis unlike any in recorded history. A new species has appeared at our borders, and they possess technology that makes our combined fleets appear primitive. The chamber erupted in discussion. Representatives clicked, chirped, buzzed, and spoke in dozens of different languages. The translation computers worked overtime to keep up with the chaos. Ambassador Threx of the Mantoid Hives raised one of her sharp arms for attention. The insect-like being stood 3 meters tall and commanded respect through sheer presence. Elder Kethmorin speaks truly, she said in her clicking voice. We have reviewed the sensor data from Commander Veltar's fleet. These humans destroyed a 2-kilometer asteroid with what they called a point defense weapon. Our analysts estimate that their ship carries enough firepower to sterilize an entire planet. The water-breathing delegates from Oceanus Prime released streams of bubbles in their tank, which the computers translated as sounds of distress. Their spokesperson, Depth Singer Coral High, spoke through a mechanical voice box. Our calculations show that it would require our entire stellar navy to match the firepower of this single human vessel. If they have built multiple ships like this, they could conquer the entire council space within months. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. For over a millennium, the council had maintained peace through diplomacy and economic pressure. The idea of a military threat that could not be reasoned with or deterred was almost unthinkable. Representative Blackfeather of the Avian Republic spread his wings wide in a gesture of alarm. We must consider the possibility that these humans are preparing for invasion. Why else would they build such powerful warships? Perhaps, said Elder Kethmoran, they come from a part of the galaxy where such weapons are necessary. There are regions beyond our space where ancient conflicts still rage. They may have developed this technology out of necessity, not aggression. The debate continued for hours. Some delegates called for immediate military preparation. Others argued for diplomatic contact. A few suggested that they should surrender immediately and hope for mercy. Admiral Zexthor of the Draconian Star Empire had remained silent throughout the discussion. The reptilian warrior was one of the few military commanders on the council, and his opinion carried great weight in matters of war. Finally, he stood and spoke. Honored delegates, he said in his deep rumbling voice, I have spent my entire life studying warfare. I have commanded fleets and battles across a dozen star systems, and I tell you now that we cannot fight these humans and win. The chamber erupted again, but Admiral Zexthor continued speaking over the noise. The sensor readings show weapons technology at least 500 years ahead of our own. Their single ship could destroy our entire home fleet without taking significant damage. If they have more ships like this, military resistance is suicide. Then what do you suggest? Asked Representative Silkweb of the Arachnid Colonies. The spider-like being's 8 eyes glittered with frustration. Diplomacy, Admiral Zexthor replied. We must find out what they want and give it to them. If we are very lucky, they want something we can provide without destroying ourselves. Elder Kethmoran activated the chamber's main display screen. It showed the recording from Commander Veltar's encounter, frozen at the moment when the human weapon fired. The image of the expanding plasma cloud filled the dome. The question, he said, is whether we still have time for diplomacy. This human captain was professional and restrained, but we do not know the intentions of their government. We should send an embassy immediately, suggested Ambassador Dewdrop of the Plant Collective. The tree-like being's leaves rustled with urgency. Offer them trade agreements, technology exchanges, anything they might want. And if they want our territory, asked Representative Blackfeather. What if they decide that the galaxy would be better off under human rule? Then we adapt, said Admiral Zexthor grimly, because the alternative is extinction. The debate was interrupted by an urgent communication from the Council's intelligence service. Director Mindweave, a being whose species communicated through telepathy, projected his thoughts directly into the translation system. Honored Council, his mental voice said, we have detected additional human vessels entering our sensor range. At least 20 ships, all similar in design to the first. They appear to be conducting systematic patrols along their border with our space. The chamber fell completely silent. 20 ships, each one capable of destroying entire fleets. The humans were not just exploring, they were establishing a presence. Furthermore, Director Mindweave continued, our analysis of their communications suggests that these are not their most powerful vessels. References have been intercepted to something called Dreadnought-class ships that are significantly larger. Elder Kethmoran's crystalline form seemed to dim with despair. How many ships do they have? Unknown, but based on the pattern of their patrols, we estimate at least 100 vessels of various classes, possibly many more. The representatives began talking all at once, their voices rising in panic. Some called for immediate evacuation of border worlds. Others demanded that the council fleet be mobilized for a desperate last stand. Ambassador Threx climbed onto her speaking platform and released a piercing shriek that cut through all the noise. The chamber fell silent. Enough, she clicked angrily. Panic serves no purpose. We must think clearly and act wisely, or we will all die badly. The Mantoid speaks wisdom, agreed Depth Singer Coral High. What are our options? Elder Kethmoran activated the chamber's archives. Holographic records appeared in the air above the delegates, showing the long history of the council. In 3,000 years of recorded history, he said, we have faced many challenges. Wars between member species, economic collapses, natural disasters, but we have never faced an external threat of this magnitude. The archives showed images of ancient conflicts, long-dead civilizations, and the gradual expansion of council space. At the very end of the timeline, a single red dot appeared, representing the human incursion. There is, however, one precedent. Elder Kethmoran continued reluctantly. The Hegemony Wars. 2,000 years ago, a hush fell over the chamber. The Hegemony Wars were ancient history, barely remembered except by scholars and historians. But those who knew the stories understood what Elder Kethmoran was suggesting. The Altanian hegemony, he explained for those who did not know, was a species that developed technology far beyond their neighbors. They conquered 12 star systems before the council took action. What kind of action? asked Representative Silkweb, though her tone suggested she already knew. Containment, Elder Kethmorin said simply. The council isolated the hegemony, cut off their trade, and waited for their civilization to collapse from within. When that failed, more direct measures were taken. No one asked what those direct measures were. The record showed that the Altanian home system was now an empty region of space, marked on charts as a navigation hazard due to unusual radiation levels. You are suggesting genocide, Admiral Zextor said flatly. I am suggesting that the Council has faced extinction-level threats before, and survived, Elder Kethmorin replied. Though I hope it does not come to that. It would not work anyway, Admiral Zextor continued. The Altanians had maybe 50 ships. These humans have shown us at least 100, and probably have many more. Any attempt at containment would fail immediately. Director Mindweave's mental voice cut through the discussion. There is another factor to consider. Our analysis of human communications suggests that they are not a unified species. They appear to have multiple governments and factions, just as we do. What does that mean for us? Asked Ambassador Dewdrop. It means they might fight among themselves if properly encouraged. It also means we might be able to make deals with some factions against others. Representative Blackfeather fluffed his feathers in agitation. You are suggesting we try to start a human civil war? I am suggesting we explore all options, Director Mindweave replied, including the possibility that some humans might be reasonable while others are not. The debate continued for hours more, but gradually a consensus began to emerge. The Council could not fight the humans and win. They could not ignore them and hope they would go away. That left only diplomacy, and diplomacy required understanding what the humans wanted. We need more information, Elder Kethmorin finally declared. I propose that we send an official embassy to these humans, offer them recognition as a sovereign power, and request formal negotiations. And if they refuse, asked Representative Silkweb, then we learn something important about their intentions, Admiral Zextor replied. If they want to talk, we have a chance. If they don't, we start preparing for the end of the galaxy as we know it. The vote was unanimous. For the first time in Council history, every single delegate agreed on a course of action. Whether it was because they were wise, or because they were terrified, no one could say. As the session ended, and the delegates began to leave, Elder Kethmorin remained in the chamber, staring at the display screen. The image of the destroyed asteroid still glowed in the crystal dome, a reminder of humanity's power. Computer, he said quietly, show me the historical records of first contact situations where one species held overwhelming technological superiority. The computer processed the request for several minutes before responding. Search complete. 47 documented cases in galactic history. How many resulted in peaceful coexistence? Another pause. 3 cases, Elder. In all 3, the superior species chose to limit their expansion voluntarily, and the other 44 cases, conquest, slavery, or extinction of the inferior species. Elder Kethmorin's crystalline form flickered with sadness. The odds were not good, but perhaps, if the Council was very lucky and very wise, these humans might be different. If not, the age of the Galactic Council was coming to an end, whether they accepted it or not. The only question was whether that end would come through negotiation or through fire.
Captain Sarah Chen stood in her private quarters aboard the Terran Aegis, staring out at the stars through the massive viewport. The alien escort ships were still following them, maintaining a respectful distance after the demonstration. She had given them something to think about, but she knew the real conversation was just beginning. Her door chimed, and Commander Rodriguez entered carrying a datapad and wearing a troubled expression. Captain, we're receiving long-range communications intercepts from throughout this region of space. It seems our little demonstration has caused quite a stir. Sarah turned from the viewport. What kind of stir, Lisa? Emergency council sessions, fleet mobilizations, diplomatic communications flying in all directions. Our translation computers are working overtime, but it's clear that every major government in this part of the galaxy is talking about us. Sarah took the datapad and scrolled through the intercepted messages. Even with translation difficulties, the tone was unmistakable. Fear, confusion, and panic. They're treating us like an invasion force, she said. Can you blame them? We just vaporized an asteroid with what we told them was a point defense weapon. From their perspective, we might as well be gods of war. Sarah walked to her desk and sat down heavily in her chair. Command decisions were never easy, but this one would affect the entire human race. How humanity introduced itself to the galaxy would shape relationships for generations to come. Lisa, what would you do in their position? Honestly, I'd be scared out of my mind. Their weapons technology is centuries behind ours. Their ships look like museum pieces. If I thought an alien fleet this powerful was approaching Earth, I'd be preparing for the worst. Sarah nodded. That was the problem. The aliens were reacting exactly as humans would in the same situation. They saw overwhelming force and assumed hostile intent. But humanity didn't want to be seen as conquerors. They wanted to be seen as neighbors. "Captain," said Lieutenant Park over the intercom, "we're receiving a transmission from the lead alien vessel. Commander Veltar wants to speak with you." "Put him through." The Kyrion commander's musical voice filled her quarters. "Captain Chen, I hope I am not disturbing you." "Not at all, Commander. What can I do for you?" "I wanted to thank you for your restraint during our encounter." A less disciplined commander might have responded differently to our mistake. Sarah smiled. The alien was being diplomatic, but she could hear the relief in his voice. "We're all professionals here, Commander. Mistakes happen when people are nervous." "Indeed. Captain, if I may ask a personal question, how many ships like yours does humanity possess?" Sarah considered her answer carefully. The truth was that the Terran Aegis was just the first of its class. Earth had dozens more under construction, and plans for hundreds more, but she didn't want to terrify the aliens into doing something desperate. "Enough to defend ourselves, Commander, but not so many that we're looking for trouble." "I see. And your intentions in this region of space?" "Exploration, first contact, and hopefully peaceful relations with any intelligent species we encounter." "We're not conquerors, Commander. We're explorers." There was a long pause before Veltar replied. "Captain, I believe you are sincere, but my superiors may need more convincing. The Council is concerned about your capabilities." "I understand their concern. Perhaps it's time for a more formal introduction." "What do you mean?" Sarah made her decision. "I'm going to send a message to every inhabited system in this region, an official greeting from humanity to the galaxy. Would you like to observe the transmission?" "I would, yes, Captain. That would be very helpful." Sarah ended the conversation and called for her senior staff to meet in the communications center. It was time for humanity to speak to the stars. An hour later, the key officers of the Terran Aegis gathered around the main communications array. The system was powerful enough to send messages across hundreds of light years and advanced enough to break through any encryption or communication barrier they had encountered. "Captain," said Communications Officer Reynolds, "we're ready to transmit on all frequencies and in all known languages. Our computers have analyzed the alien communications we've intercepted and can translate into 47 different alien languages simultaneously." Sarah looked around at her crew. These people represented the best of humanity. Scientists, engineers, warriors, and diplomats all working together toward a common goal. If humanity was going to introduce itself to the galaxy, these were the right people to do it. "All right, people. This message will be heard by billions of alien beings across dozens of star systems. Make sure we get it right." She walked to the transmission station and activated the recording system. For a moment she thought about all the humans throughout history who had dreamed of this moment. From ancient astronomers wondering if they were alone, to science fiction writers imagining first contact, to the engineers and scientists who had built the ships that made it possible. "Computer, begin transmission. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Federation vessel Terran Aegis. I speak for all of humanity when I say that we greet the stars with wonder and hope. We have traveled far from our home world to meet our neighbors among the galaxies, and we come in peace." She paused, choosing her next words carefully. "We know that our arrival may cause concern. Our ships are large and powerful because we come from a part of the galaxy where such strength is necessary for survival. But we do not seek to impose our will on others. We seek friendship, trade, and mutual understanding among all intelligent species." Sarah looked at Commander Rodriguez, who nodded encouragingly. "We offer our knowledge and our friendship to any species that wishes to treat with us as equals. We have much to learn from the civilizations that have explored these stars for thousands of years. We also have much to offer in return." Now came the difficult part, the warning that needed to be given without sounding like a threat. "We understand that some may view our capabilities with suspicion or fear. We want to be very clear about our intentions. Humanity desires peace above all else. We will respect the sovereignty of all nations and species. We will honor existing treaties and borders. We will not interfere in the internal affairs of other civilizations." She took a breath before continuing. "However, we also want to be clear about our limits. Any species that mistakes our desire for peace as weakness will find themselves corrected. Any attempt to threaten, attack, or exploit humanity or our allies will be met with appropriate response. We come in peace, but we come prepared." Sarah gestured to Lieutenant Park, who activated a second part of the transmission. The message now included detailed star charts showing the locations of human colonies, the patrol routes of the Earth fleet, and the positions of other human vessels in the region.
As a gesture of good faith, we are sharing our current positions and patrol schedules with all recipients of this message. We have nothing to hide and no aggressive intentions. We simply want all neighboring civilizations to know where we are and what we are doing. The star charts made it clear that the Terran Aegis was not alone. Dozens of human ships were visible throughout the region, each one marked with its class and capabilities. Anyone looking at the charts would see that humanity had not sent a single explorer, but an entire fleet. To the Galactic Council, we formally request recognition as a sovereign power and wish to establish diplomatic relations. We respect your long history of maintaining peace in this region and hope to contribute to that tradition. Sarah looked directly into the recording device. To all the peoples of the galaxy, we extend our hand in friendship. We are your neighbors now, and we hope to be your friends. The age of humanity among the stars has begun, and we believe it can be an age of prosperity and peace for all. She gestured to Reynolds, who ended the recording and began the transmission process. "Captain," said Lieutenant Park, "the message is being broadcast on all frequencies simultaneously. Estimated time to reach all inhabited systems in this region, 6 hours, and the alien ships escorting us. They're receiving the transmission in real time, ma'am. Commander Veltar's ship is already responding." The Kirion commander's voice came through the speakers, and for the first time since they had met, he sounded genuinely hopeful. "Captain Chen, that was exactly what the galaxy needed to hear. You have given us much to consider. I hope it helps, Commander. We really do want to be good neighbors. I believe you do, Captain. And I think my superiors will believe it too, once they have time to process what you have said." Over the next several hours, the responses began to pour in. The Terran Aegis's communications array lit up with incoming messages from across the region. Some were cautious, some were welcoming, and a few were suspicious. But all of them were talking instead of shooting, which Sarah considered a victory. The Galactic Council sent an official response 6 hours after the transmission. Elder Kethmoran's crystalline voice carried across the stars with formal dignity. "Captain Chen and the people of Earth, the Galactic Council acknowledges your message and your request for diplomatic recognition. We are prepared to begin formal negotiations for peaceful coexistence and mutual benefit. We welcome humanity to the community of galactic civilizations." Sarah smiled as she listened to the response. It was diplomatic language, carefully worded and full of hidden meanings, but the essential message was clear. The Council was willing to talk. "Captain," said Commander Rodriguez, "we're also receiving direct messages from individual species governments. The mantoid hives want to discuss trade agreements. The aquatic republics are interested in scientific exchanges. Even the draconian Star Empire is talking about mutual defense treaties. What about the species that aren't responding? Hard to say. Some of them might be taking time to consider their options. Others might be too far away to have received the message yet. A few might be hostile, but they're being very quiet about it." Sarah nodded. There would always be some who chose conflict over cooperation, but the majority seemed willing to give peace a chance. "Set course for the coordinates the Council provided for their diplomatic station," she ordered. "It's time for humanity to take its place at the galactic table." As the Terran Aegis changed course toward the Council station, Sarah returned to her quarters and looked out at the stars again. They looked different now, somehow, less empty, and more full of possibilities. Humanity had announced its arrival not with desperate pleas for acceptance, but with quiet confidence backed by overwhelming strength. They had made it clear that they were prepared for peace or war, but that they preferred peace. The whispers that had once filled the council chambers with comfortable political discourse had been replaced by serious discussions about the future. The galaxy had been forced to acknowledge that humanity was now a major player in galactic politics, and Captain Sarah Chen, looking out at the infinite stars, knew that this was just the beginning. The real work of building relationships, establishing trade, and creating lasting peace would take decades or centuries. But humanity had made a good start. They had introduced themselves to the galaxy with strength, dignity, and an open hand. Whether the galaxy would take that hand in friendship remained to be seen. The age of human galactic diplomacy had begun.